2020 TV wrap up. Before we talk about the other TVs, we have to kind of wrap up what 2021. What's the go-to 2021 TV for you personally? Like, what do you recommend the most to everybody?
The C1.
C1. And why is that?
Uh, because more people seem to be movies, TV, and gaming than just movies and TV. If you're just movies and TV, then go for an A80. And the A90 is just really hard to recommend unless you got a ton of money and you're going for the 83. Because I would just take the size of an A80 over a smaller A90. And then if you have a lot of money and you game, then the G1. The G1 is my just top tier pick of the year.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm like really close to that along the same lines. It's definitely between the QN90A and the C1 is the most recommended for people. Um, then like also the A80J is there too. But I would have to say like the one that people buy the most that I think like when people talk to me and I have a conversation with them, they end up settling on like the QN90A because like there's just so much that they'd be missing if they went with OLED. For them, they feel like that would be something they would regret. And I have something to kind of say about that a little bit later as well. And for most people, you have to think that they're not going to be in like these dark rooms. So it makes sense that they would want a QN90A over, say, an OLED. And it's so close now that I think that it's worth considering. And it's so close now that I think that it's worth considering.
Y'all gonna learn today. We're gonna talk about OLED bias. OLED bias. Now, what is OLED bias? OLED bias is an overemphasis, an over-exaggeration of the flaws of QLEDs with respect to black levels and blooming, while at the same time ignoring the flaws of OLEDs with respect to brightness. I'm gonna say it again. OLED bias is an overemphasis and over-exaggeration of the flaws of QLEDs with respect to black levels and blooming, while at the same time ignoring the flaws of OLEDs with respect to brightness. Now, my first video, I asked a simple question. Does brightness really matter? And I asked this question because there's a clear bias when it comes to OLEDs. Even though QLEDs can get way closer to the performance of OLEDs than OLEDs could ever get to performing like a QLED. All right? When it comes to blooming, when it comes to black levels, right? You rarely see blooming when watching real world content. You literally gotta use some subtitles or get to the side of the TV or really try to pull that blooming out. Now, I'm not trying to say that QLEDs don't have blooming, but it's very rare that you see it in real world content. But on the other hand, it is very obvious the flaws of OLEDs, no matter how much you guys try to ignore it. OLED's flaw is its ABL, its brightness. And respect to the tech nerds and the spec geeks, I really appreciate the civil discourse. But at the end of the day, OLEDs are just dim. And when I say they're dim, I literally mean they're dim. When I say QLEDs are brighter, I literally mean they're brighter. And no amount of testing equipment or instruments is ever gonna change my mind about that. They're just dim. The truth of the matter is, it has been overshadowed by the marketing and all of the tech babble and spec babble that goes on YouTube. When the best test that you could ever use, the best tried and proven test is the eye test. See, I use the eyeball test. See, I make the videos the way I make the videos on purpose. Because no matter what level you're on, I make my videos in the way that anybody and everybody can understand the message that I'm trying to get across. That's why I do the videos the way that I do. Because to be honest, it really ain't that deep, my G. Dim is dim, bright is bright. End of story. All of that testing and all that stuff like that, at the end of the day, dude, it don't pass the eye test. At the end of the day, it doesn't pass the eye test. It doesn't pass the eye test. See, when you walk into a store, when you walk into a Best Buy, right? Nobody goes in there and asks for the test results, right? You go in there and you use your eyes to see what you want, right? At the end of the day, if you watch any review on YouTube, right? If you take all of that spec babble out of your mind, all of that marketing, and you just use your eyes and you actually listen to the videos, listen to what people are saying, listen to what they're actually telling you behind the curtain. See, a lot of people on YouTube are so caught up with all this tech stuff, all this marketing, all this stuff that's been fed to you so much that your eyes can't work anymore. You're blind to it. But see, in this video, I'm going to expose the Jedi mind trick that has been placed over all of you guys. And hopefully I can cure you from your OLED bias.
So, do I have any regrets on buying an OLED personally? I have a few. And that's just the brightness, man. I'm not getting the same amount of brightness. It's not there all the way for the A80J most of the time. But I will say, like in movies and stuff, I don't mind it too much. It's just when it comes to those full screen games, I do notice it.
Yep.
I do notice it. And then in the dimming thing, like I'm not noticing it like more. I just feel like it's already dim when I'm playing. I don't know. It doesn't take me out of the moment, but I do notice it. Like if I wanted to look for it, I could see it. There's no
I had
doubt
a
about it.
really bad one with it the other night. So being sick, I've been lazy and not wanting to pull the C1 out, so I've been playing on the A80. And not wanting to pull the C1 out, so I've been playing on the A80 and playing Destiny.
Yeah.
And it was Iron Banner, and it's like I was being punished for doing well and not dying for a couple games. I was just on these, extreme killing streaks.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple times I'm looking at the TV in the middle of that match, and it's like, when did my TV switch to a plasma? It was that dark.
Really, nigga?
Welcome everyone to Keep It Classy Tech, and in this video I want to talk about why some people will say that OLED TVs or maybe even just HDR or Dolby Vision looks too dim. So the first thing is going to be a little controversial. However, I don't think you should use Dolby Vision, especially if you have not gotten the television calibrated. So if you're watching this video and you're looking for settings, I'm telling you the best thing is going to be disable Dolby Vision, and we'll talk about why in a minute. And again, we aren't using Dolby Vision. I don't recommend it. And the reason for that is a lot of the content was converted from HDR10 to Dolby Vision on, say, Netflix or even on UHD discs or wherever, it doesn't matter. And the problem is you have Dolby Vision Dark, which is the accurate setting, and then you have Dolby Vision Bright, which will raise the midtones. It's basically like turning on a dynamic tone mapping for your HDR10 content. The problem, though, is Dolby Vision Bright isn't always brighter than dark, and dark can sometimes be brighter than bright, and a lot of people, that's the biggest complaint I always see, is about Dolby Vision being too dark, whether it's in bright or dark, sometimes it's just too dark.
When did my TV switch to a plasma? It was that dark.
See, QLEDs share a common flaw with blooming, but OLEDs share a common flaw also with brightness. Here's your LG CX, your Vizio OLED, and the Sony A8H, and they all share the same problem. They're all dimmer than the QLED. And I don't care how much you want to measure it, man. This looks more like real life. That's why they say QLEDs are like looking out of a window, and these look like you have sunglasses on. Shout out to Truth Seeker in the comments section. That's what he said. The OLEDs look like you have sunglasses on. This is more representative of what you will see when you walk outside of your door. All right, let's just play the video a little bit. Look at that. I mean, just look at the highlights. It's not just the whites. The greens are different. The skin is different. The hat is different. All of the colors are different. It affects your overall picture. All right. I've been playing Madden 22. Looks better on the QLED. I've been playing 2K22. Looks better on the QLED.
So I was playing a golf game with my dad when he was over, and we were playing for quite a bit. So when you're playing this golf game, pretty much all you're seeing is green grass, right? So like you're teeing off, you're seeing almost the same sort of scenery, you're seeing the same sort of sky. Sometimes, of course, layout changes, all that stuff. But golf is actually a really great example because there's a HUD, there's a big green field, and then there's a sky. Like I really wish I would have tried this more on when I had it for testing, because I did notice it then. I did notice it. It got dimmer over time, and that's one where you could definitely notice a difference. And that game already felt kind of dull anyway, just based on it didn't have true HDR. It's using Microsoft's Auto HDR, and it's not great looking. So that's one of the things like that I was seeing. I was like, okay. In games like that, it looked amazing on the Q90T. Between the Sony A80J, the LG C1, and the Q90T, those are the TVs that I've tried Halo Infinite out on. I have to say that the Q90T by far has looked the best, and it's not really even close. The game is very bright and vibrant and beautiful, and the pulse rifle effects and everything just sticks out so much on these Samsung TVs. And in second place, we will have the Sony A80J. This TV is incredible. The highlight detail is pretty good when you do have it set to gradation preferred. I really do like the way it looks. And while it is dimmer than the Samsung TV, no doubt about it, it is going to be brighter than the C1 by far, unless you have dynamic tone mapping on. Like that game blew my mind. But on an OLED, it's like I'm looking into like a plasma, like you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to consider if you're a gamer. I think it really is, and that goes for the C1 as well. It's it's dim on that too. So,
because at the end of the day, QLEDs get way closer to OLEDs than OLEDs could ever get to QLEDs, right? Brightness affects your picture quality way more than blooming does when it comes to the performance between QLEDs and OLEDs. But see, nobody's talking about it. Everybody's talking about all this spec babble.
Yeah. So
I put this here from Joe Woody about the G1. So especially the 77-inch, that one after calibration was brighter than the A90J.
Mm-hmm. So
the main thing I can think of why is the 77 G1, at least the one that I did, is warmer than D65 out of the box. So it's too warm, so you have to add the blue and the green back to it, and that made it brighter. And after calibration, it was brighter than the A90J. So it depends on the G1, but yeah, it's something that a lot of people don't realize. Like I know Ninjishin did a A90J and got 900 and something nits. Or, I'm sorry, a G1 got 900 and something nits. So the G1 really is very, very bright, and it doesn't really seem to get that word of mouth.
yeah.
Everyone says it's the same as a C1. It's out of the box. Yeah, they're about the same, but the G1's still a little better in high APL. But after calibration, the G1 really gets a lot better.
Really, nigga?
When they make videos and they have to lower the brightness of the QLED, right? Those videos are very misleading. All right? Very misleading. Because see, most people, when they watch those videos, They're thinking that the OLEDs are just as bright as the QLEDs, and they're not. And when they get it home and they start to watch sports, television, anything besides dark scenes in movies, they see that it's dark and they can't understand why. That's because the videos where these guys have to lower the QLED to match the OLED, that's why. That's why the majority of y'all that's in my comments section telling me that my video and my camera, something was wrong with it and I was playing tricks, that's why. Because they're playing tricks, right? They're playing tricks. I'm playing no tricks. I'm giving it to you straight. I'm giving it to you raw. So when you get that OLED home, right? And what we got football season coming up, right? NFL, college games, all right? Some of y'all might be hockey fans, baseball fans, basketball fans. There's a reason why when you get it home, it doesn't look the way you thought it was going to look. And all these people out here that's been using OLEDs for the past few months or couple years, your eyes and what you watch have become adjusted to the look of that OLED. But see, the majority of people out here who want to get OLED for the first time and don't know how dim it is, right? When they get it home, they need to know that it is a lot dimmer in most cases than the TV they have at home. They need to know how dim it is.
And by the way, we're not knocking OLED. I'm just talking about kind of like what the downsides could be if you're buying an OLED. And me coming from a big LCD to a big OLED, that's what I noticed right away. I will say this, movies look really good, like darker movies, fantastic.
Especially if it's older or like a non-UHD Blu-ray. Like if you have regular Blu-rays laying around, those on the A80 really, that's like the best way to watch them. Non-UHD Blu-ray, like if you have regular Blu-rays laying around, those on the A80 really, that's like the best way to watch them.
Really, nigga?
What's the go-to 2021 TV for you personally? Like, what do you recommend the most to everybody?
The C1.
C1. And why is that?
Because more people seem to be movies, TV, and gaming than just movies and TV. If you're just movies and TV, then go for an A80. And the A90 is just really hard to recommend unless you got a ton of money and you're going for the 83. Because I would just take the size of an A80 over a smaller A90. And then if you have a lot of money and you game, then the G1.
Just like right here, I have turned it down to match the OLED. The QLED is still showing more highlights. All right. So, if you've got an OLED and that's the only TV you have and you've gotten used to the look of the OLED, man, enjoy your OLED. All right. What I would tell you is to get both. Get both. Get both technologies. All right. You sitting up in the dark and you want to watch your OLED, watch your OLED. All right. But the QLED looks better in the dark to me as well. You're going to get better HDR highlights. It's just going to hit better. The OLED will do better on very dark scenes, which are very minimal. All right. That's why every time somebody's comparing a QLED to an OLED, right, they always got to pull up some Starfield test, or they got to pull up some kind of like one scene where you're in space and there's stars. All right. But the entire show doesn't look like that, man. I'm talking about from the jump. From the jump. I'm talking about when the show first comes on, right? Show comes on, right? Netflix, boom. Show comes on, it's bright, guys. It's bright. Those little dark scenes are too few and far in between. And the QLED is not too far behind the OLED, especially when you're sitting at a proper distance. The fact that you got to go all the way up on the screen to show the difference, I mean, just look at the difference in the whites. Look at the difference in the whites, all right? That white range is where your QLED shines. And right now, I have the brightness turned down. But this is what white really looks like. See that? That's white. That is white, all right? That's white, all right? The OLEDs can't produce the colors that the QLED produces because it doesn't get bright enough, because it gets capped. It gets capped. That's your ABL right there. That's your ABL, guys. See that? It's not a game. It's real. What looks better to you? Right? Let's pause that. One looks muted and one does not. One looks SDR, one looks HDR. That's the difference in brightness. But again, let me just turn this down, right? Let's go ahead and match the OLED. Let's turn this all the way down and do what they do in their comparison videos, right? They ain't really showing you nothing. I mean, they be in videos like they scared to tell you that something's wrong with the OLED. I mean, I saw a recent video. We know the problems with OLEDs. I'm not going to expound on that. Yeah, you're not going to expound on it. You've never expounded on it. No one expounds on it. I'm talking about it, and I'm forcing y'all to talk about it. That's what it is. Those are the facts. So everybody that thought my video I was playing camera tricks, you see it in real time. There's no camera tricks. This is the real strength of owning a brighter TV. Right here.
But HDR is a high dynamic range, meaning you can take an image that has, pure black or very dark areas and have very, very bright objects in that scene at the same time. That is what HDR is for. That is what OLED is very good at, is being able to show those pure blacks and being able to show a very bright highlight right next to them with no blooming.
Well, I think some of the people that we have in our community are missing what we mean by specular highlights. We're talking about very small stars. We're talking about what you see behind us. Very small explosions, things of that nature on an LED look three-dimensional. For me, explosions like things like Gemini Man on an OLED look almost painted on, where on an LED, because it's a larger spot, it's quick. That is always going to be. So I think when you guys are misunderstanding what we mean by specular highlights, explosions, things that make you go, wow, LED is going to destroy an OLED. It's not even going to be a conversation. LED is going to destroy an OLED. It's not even going to be a conversation.